flew out here all the way from California. I am a former transgender kid. I'm biologically female, but throughout a good portion of my adolescence, I identified as male. I started by socially transitioning at 12, meaning I cut my hair shorter, started buying boys' clothing, and asked my family to refer to me by a new name that I chose. A lot of you must be wondering, how does this happen? What led up to this?
This girl is so brave because the world does not like detransitioners right now. It goes against the narrative that says, my kid's having gender dysphoria, I have to change their gender right now before they kill themselves.
Well, there's several factors that make our youth quite vulnerable. And I turned to the internet because I had so few friends in person. Little did I know that as soon as I made my first Instagram account at 11, I would immediately be bombarded with trans-identifying kids, unachievable body standards, and even softcore porn. I never stood a chance because that was just the beginning. I fell victim to the idea that I was actually a boy trapped within a girl's body, and I began to present myself in a way that felt more consistent with my so-called gender identity.
This is what I've been discussing with other psychologists. Okay, I was one of these people that didn't have many friends, and I went online. In fact, for the first time when I was 14, I'm an elder millennial, and my first time was on dial-up. But back then, there was no Instagram or Facebook. Sure, you could definitely access porn, but there wasn't a social media presence telling you needed to be any sort of way. I found a community of depressed teenagers writing poetry about hurting themselves and about lost love, and I journaled with these girls online, and I'm still friends with some of them to this day. We'll email each other, or if I rarely hop on Facebook, we'll contact each other. I love those girls. I mean, there's always a community that you can find, especially with the internet, for even the weirdest of weird. But now the communities that you find have changed. In order to be part of an offset community, in order to stop being isolated, sometimes you have to join basically the cult of transition.
So they turned to the help of healthcare professionals, who went on to coerce them into giving up their role as parents. We had no idea these so-called doctors and therapists were just butchers and liars. They told my parents that it was a life or death choice, and if they chose not to accept me as their son, they would certainly end up with a dead daughter. I thought that by starting cross-sex hormones, my body would become more consistent with my real gender identity. My gender specialist expressed frustration and immediately referred me to another endocrinologist who was quick to give me consent forms for puberty-blocking medication.
This is absolutely true, and this is a result of Marxism infiltrating schools. Okay, in my master's program, there was this one awesome girl who spoke out against our professor about detransitioning and how maybe transitioning isn't helping everyone, and that maybe it shouldn't be as normalized as it is. Our teacher went the route of saying, that you have to explain to parents that if they don't accept, they're going to lose their kid. There are not findings enough to suggest that, okay? The studies have not been done to indicate that if you do not transition a preteen or teenager, then they will kill themselves. In fact, there is the opposite going on, is a lot of people are dying after transitioning, either via drug use or suicide. But we still don't have all the data because it's only been in the last 10, 20 years that transitioning has been pushed as an agenda, that kids go to school and they have to talk about gender all day. When I was in school, we didn't talk about gender all day, and that's why we didn't have that many transsexuals, because it wasn't an issue forced down your throat. You didn't have to constantly be considering yourself so that you could fit in or so that you could be the teacher's pet.
I did not have the mental faculties at 13 years old to be able to make an informed decision that would permanently impact my overall health and stunt my development. Neither did I at 15 when I sought to remove my breasts. I wanted to look more like boys my age, and most importantly, I wanted to avoid the sexual attention that came with having a visibly feminine chest. I was groped at school. That was the final straw. I was afraid of being sexually assaulted again. I wanted this part of my body gone. And now it is, and it will be that way for the rest of my life because I was allowed to make an adult decision as a traumatized 15-year-old.
This story is absolutely heartbreaking. I just feel like a mama bear hearing it because we're supposed to be animals protecting our cubs. Okay, and we're supposed to release them into the world when they are ready to handle themselves. Asking, a 5-10-year-old what gender they would like to have and then changing it to that doesn't make any sense because not only can a child not fully comprehend the full scope of what they're doing to themselves, but they aren't emotionally intelligent either. Emotional intelligence is something that is gained over time through perception, experience, and trauma often gets in the way of emotional intelligence. It takes longer for somebody who's experienced deep trauma to become emotionally intelligent because they must first deal with this trauma, and this trauma holds you back. Did anyone listening want anything entirely different for themselves when they were 10 versus 20 versus 30? I know I did. I know that my life is not what I thought it would be when I was a little kid.
So I transitioned at 34. I'm going to be 40 this year next month. And I want to give a explanation, another one, as to why I think kids shouldn't transition. Because I'm going to tell you, but pre-transition, I was on one medication. Actually, 2 medications. One I was able to come off. One medication. Anxiety medication. That's what I was on prior to transition, okay? Now, I'm on a buttload of medicines, right? That's just one bin. Here's another bin. I also have some vitamins here. I'm going to go over them real quick because these are negative side effects of my transition. So I want to be clear. These things could happen and may happen to you, all right? So, one thing I said about 3 years into my transition, my blood pressure went through the roof, okay? I am now on 3 blood pressure medications. I am on a patch. I was currently on right now.
3 different blood pressure medications.
On 3 blood pressure medications is a little crazy. And yeah, my blood pressure's in check, but sometimes it could still be high. And sometimes that's scary. You really got to make sure that is taken care of and that is under control. But I think it's clear to see how many medications that I do take or have taken that this isn't for kids. Kids can't consent to taking all these medications, okay? They just can't. Kids lack the skills to know to make a lifelong decision to become a lifelong medical patient, because that's what I am. Whether I choose to detransition, which I never plan to, but if I do, I'll still be a lifelong medical patient. And that is what we were doing to kids, committing them to being lifelong medical patients. And if you don't think Big Pharma isn't just cashing in on every child and seeing a $1.5 million mark over your child, then you need to wake up and do your research.
What
right?
happened to the days when people knew that Big Pharma was not on your side? That it was mostly a money-making scheme to keep people sick and not make people better? Okay, they are making a ton of money off of this.
I feel a responsibility as a physician to be honest about puberty blockers and hormonal therapy in teenagers. This can lead to infertility, and I don't know if that's really well known. That means that you would never be able to have your own children. It really is important to go through puberty at your normal sex, as your normal sex, and at your normal rate, and not arrest that process. Give your body time to complete the process before you start changing things that could have long-term implications. So I want you to be smart about it.
It doesn't seem like these kids care about that. They are too busy trying to mutilate themselves. I see some of them as really being today's version of a cutter, which is what I did when I was a teenager and was lonely and rejected and trying to figure out myself, right? They're just doing something even more extreme, and they're being allowed to do it. But
I just got my uterus back, and it looks so freaking cool! Trigger warning, this is an organ, and it is a wet specimen, and it is my uterus, plus the tubes as well. So, ready for the reveal? This is it. This is my uterus. This is it compared to my head. This little thing causes so much problems for everybody.
the uterus causes so many problems. This child is about to be in menopause now. Without your uterus and ovaries, you're gonna go into early menopause. I put a list of potential things that can happen from menopause on the screen, some of which include, and are common, in increase in temperature, dizziness, migraine, mental health changes, lack of sexual attraction, disturbed sleep, tearfulness, vaginal itching or dryness, irritability, confusion, and potentially stroke. I don't know who needs to hear this, but you can help your kid get through this without making them a big pharma patient for life, without having them take on all these extra bodily symptoms from procedures that they've done. They're too young to be that unhealthy. Your body is made the way it's supposed to be. If you need to make changes, at least do it later, when your body is done, when your body is ready. This channel is not about gender dysphoria and the repercussions of it, but I feel like there's a little bit more to discuss here, so I will have a couple more episodes on this. If this is something you do really want to see more of, leave me a comment and let me know. But also, hit that like button and subscribe for me. The closer I get to being monetized, the better I can make these videos. If I can become monetized, then I can spend more time doing this, and therefore I can bring you better quality and longer content, right? So we just got to get to that point. Thank you, everybody. Mwah!